What's going on, everybody? I'm Tyler Caldwell, and I'm here with Lou Cross from Lure Cigars. And today we're going to learn a little bit about Lure as well as Lou himself. So thank you for being here with us.
My pleasure.
I'm excited for this. For guys who don't know Lure yet, you've obviously mistaken your life decisions in a cigar smoking realm. But Lure is a newer brand. You've been around since 2023,
That's right.
That is what it says on the band here. I'm a big fan of Lure. I've been a big fan for quite some time now. Why don't you give a little bit of information about yourself so we can get the folks watching
Great.
why they should be a fan of Lure?
First, I appreciate the opportunity to come out and chat with you all.
Thank you.
You guys have been a great supporter of the brand since you became aware of it, and I thank you for that. Lure Cigars is a tribute to my dad, my late father. And so in 2023, he passed away at 90 years of age and had a full life. And the two things that we did together were fishing and smoking cigars. So the theme of tackle and tobacco comes together in Lure Cigars. And when we originally had come up with the idea of doing a cigar, I wanted to do a cigar for his 90th birthday. And so I had gone to my friend Nimmer Ahmad at Balakari, who's also out of Tallahassee, and I know Nimmer, and he's a personal friend, and I went to him and I said, can you roll a cigar for my dad's 90th? And he said, sure. And so at the time, at the end of my dad's life, he smoked much more mild cigars, and so he rolled a little short story Figurado style in a Connecticut, just a very, very mild cigar. And we ordered them. They didn't show up in time for his 90th birthday. We smoked a lot of other great cigars, had a great party, had all the friends and family together. But a couple weeks after, his health declined, and he just said, I'm tired. And he passed away. The cigar showed up the week that his decline happened. And so I had these cigars, and Nimmer's like, I'm sorry that they're late. I said, no big deal. And I gave those cigars away at his funeral. And when I was giving the eulogy, I said to people in the audience, I said, thank you for coming. If you're a cigar smoker, take a cigar out of the back. I had the box in the back of the church. And I didn't expect many people to take cigars because, you just don't know who's a cigar smoker and who's not a cigar smoker. And while I had a core group of friends that were there, the 200 cigars that were there were gone. I walked in the back. I didn't even have any left for myself. And I was like, wow, this is a surprise. And over the next few weeks after that service, I got text messages, phone calls. People came up to me in the grocery store. People came up, and just said, hey, I had a great experience smoking a cigar. It reminded me of a time in the year Dad and I went fishing together. Or I smoked it with my son, or I smoked it with my daughter, or I smoked it with my dad. And all of these stories kept coming in. And so I basically felt that there was something there. And I went back to Nimmer and I said, look, there's a lot of momentum. People love the story. Can we get a cigar that I like to smoke? And maybe I'll do that and I'll hand it out at poker games and at the lounge and things. He said, sure. Well, you go to a factory, you don't get 200 cigars, you get 5,000 cigars. Right. So I went to my wife and I said, look, is this something that I can do? And she's like, you're crazy. And I said, but this is something that'll last me a long time and I'll have these and, I'll be able to. Well, as I started giving them out, we had the Corojo blend. And that Corojo blend was actually a gift. I went to the warehouse and I said, I want a cigar that I like to smoke. And I was shooting for a Habano, because I like Habano cigar, J21 from Tatuaje. I like a lot of Foundation stuff. The Habanos are what I was looking for, and I just wasn't finding one that was meeting my palate. And so I was a little bit frustrated. Nimmer goes back to the back of the warehouse, comes out with a reddish brown cigar, and he says, try this. And I started smoking it, and I was like, what is this? And he's like, just smoke it. And so after 45 minutes, I'm smoking this thing. I said, what is this cigar? Really, really, really good. He said, that's a Corojo blend that we've been working on, a Corojo Esquiro. And that cigar became the Big Lou. Okay. So I named that one after my dad. And so that's kind of how it started. And he said, what are you going to do with this? And I said, I don't know. Started handing them out. People said, where can I get more of these? He said, you've got something that's really got potential here. You ought to create a business. And so Black Friday of 2023, we launched with the Big Lou. That was a 6x52 Toro. And then we had the Big Lou Torpedo, which was a 6x54 Torpedo. My dad loved BLT sandwiches. I mean, he always would judge a restaurant by the the sandwich. So the BLT, I called that the BLT. And then we had the Little Tony, which was named after my son. He's actually 6'5". But when he was little, the little Robusto, we called him Little Tony. So 5 of 50. So we launched with those 3 cigars, and we sold out before Christmas. And at that point, he said, you've got an enterprise. You need to do something. And so we continued to go forward. and we pursued it and shored up everything and did all the trademark and all the official company stuff January 1st of 2025. 2024. 2024. So that next year, that's kind of how we started. And I just kind of was selling cigars out of my local shops in Tallahassee. And then I also had an online presence at a couple places and just kind of seeing how things were going. And at that time, I was doing it part-time. And we came out with the Habano. And the Habano, my daughters were like, when are we going to get a cigar named after us?
Well,
and I was like, I didn't even
tradition.
know. Yeah, I didn't know they were paying attention, right? So the Holy Coley came out named after my daughter Nicole. That was the Robusto and Habano. And then we had a 6x52 Toro, which is named after my daughter Allison Tally Alley. Tallahassee's nickname is Tally, and Alley is her nickname. So the Holy Coley and the Tally Alley came out in February of 2024. That went over very well. So we had 2 core lines. I wanted to do a tribute cigar for my dad. And so that was on June 1st was his birthday. And so he passed away in June 27th, and then Father's Day is in June. So June's a very special month for Lure. And we did the last cast. And so I had a limited allocation of broadleaf, and the Connecticut broadleaf was one of my favorite tobaccos to work with in terms of cigars. And so we came up with the last cast. And that term, the last cast, is a phrase that fishermen use to say it's the one last one you're going to have of the day. Right. Sometimes it's not the last cast, but you say it's the last cast, and you reel it in a little slower, you put a little more action on it. And that's a cigar that I wish I could have smoked with my dad. It's one that really kind of makes you slow down and think about it and just kind of reflect on the day. It's not one that I would smoke as, the third cigar of the day, maybe not the first cigar of the day, but it's a cigar that is definitely the one to end the day. And so that's kind of the last cast. And so we went into the fall, and we had a couple other, fun projects we did. We did fish sticks. That was something that was kind of an experiment. I'm kind of rambling, so I don't know in terms of if this is kind of where you want to go, but in terms of the growth of the brand, I like smoking cigars.
Right.
And I smoke a lot of different cigars. And I've smoked over 30 years myself, and so I like what's new. And so I get excited about it. And most people think I'm kind of a little bit bonkers to come up with as many different lines and as many different things. But there's this momentum to be able to say what is new. And we've been very blessed to have so many people that have smoked our cigars and returned to them and continue to smoke them,
right.
which is really exciting. So I wanted another cigar that was a little bit more amped up. And that cigar, I wanted a Habano that had a little more kick. So our Habanos are medium. I wanted a medium plus full-bodied Habano. And I asked him to add Ligero because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a blender, right? So I'm a cigar smoker and a cigar enthusiast. And the factory was like, no, Armando, you let us do what we're going to do. And what they did was they came up with a box press version of the Habano. They actually removed tobacco, taking out some of the filler tobaccos, leaving the Ligero, the Amatepe Ligero. And what we ended up with was a box press Toro 6x52, and that cigar I call the Mean Gene. And so that one's named after my wife, because when I was sitting on the porch and smoking the samples, I said, this cigar is awesome. And she happened to overhear me. She said, well, if that cigar is awesome, I want it named after me. And so I said, well, I'm going to call it the Mean Gene because it's really, really tough. Well, that cigar is an hour and a half for sure, and I smoke fast. So I went back to the factory and I said, look, can you roll that cigar in a smaller format that I can have in a Petit Corona? We talked earlier, and I said, look, I like a smaller format cigar that I can smoke when I'm going to the bank, or I'm going to go, between cast fishing, or, on the golf course between holes. And they said, we can do it, but we're not going to do it in the box press version because they don't have the molds. Until I commit to, volume, they're not going to sit there and make the molds. So they sent it up to me in a little Parejo Corona, Rothschild format, 4x46, 4.5x46. And I just on a whim, I put a little fake band on it that just said fish sticks. I posted it to social media. And our social media following is so strong, thank you very much for following us. And they basically said, when can we get fish sticks? So the 2,500 cigars that I had rolled for myself, kind of personal consumption, just for fun, we put them in 5-packs, Ziploc style enclosure, Bovita pack inside, and a sticker, and they sold and they vaporized. Poof. So we said, I'm going to commit to this, and we're going to come out with an actual box press version. So the 4.25x46 that's out now, fish sticks kind of was an experiment, kind of a fun little project that came out. We had a couple other instances where we had catch and release, which are little 5-pack kind of projects that we do, short run little micro drops that we do. That's something fun where I can kind of get some feedback from cigar enthusiasts out there. They try something, they like it. We did the brownie trout, and that brownie trout was something that came out. That cigar is now coming out in full production next week.
Which has been my personal favorite so far.
Great.
Next to the Little Tony. I mean, Little Tony for something that has been regular production up to now. Like I love it. I love the size. The flavor profile in that size format just works perfectly for my taste.
Sure.
But now knowing that Brownie Trout is coming, get ready for it.
Coming soon.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Excellent. And so we're doing that in the Brownie Trout's coming back in the 6x54 box press. And then I've got a Little Trout, which is a little amped up version. It's got a little bit more spice to it. A little bit more, I would say, cinnamon kind of notes to it, so it's a little bit more hit, and that's in a 5x52 Robusto. So those two Maduros, the Maduros coming out next. But in between, we did have another one, which we're smoking right now.
Yes.
So all of the cigars produced to that point, so the Corojo Oscuro and the Habano, Corojo Oscuro Medium Plus, Habano Medium, I wanted more of something that had more full flavor that I like to smoke. And I smoke a lot of cigars, so I want something that's going to actually, I can taste it. Cigar that I can have with coffee, high proof spirit, or whatever. So when I went back to the factory and they said, well, we have a blend we're working on called the Oscuro that we have. And so the Lure Oscuro in the orange packaging, the Little Joe and the Big Joe, I named after a couple of coffee, so it's what I like to pair. You're drinking it with coffee. I mean, you're smoking it with drinking espresso.
Got a Little Joe right here.
Yeah. And this is the cigar that I am a daily smoker of. This is the one this is kind of the blend that is my, blend that hit my palate, and it has been exciting for other people to enjoy it as well. And that is our third core line. So we'll have 4 core lines at the end of this month coming up. And we've had a couple other things. So it's just been an exciting ride. I mean, I don't, in terms of, we had a holiday release called the Jolly Walleye that was a Habano 2000 Robusto Extra. That was something well received. We're going to do some fun holiday things for this year we've got planned, and then we're ramping up for PCA for next year. So it's just been a wild ride, and this has been a full-time effort since May of this year for me, and it's been just a joy to see other people and go out there and meet more people and been on the road and have those conversations and great cigars.
I would say, like, what I find interesting about Lure is when you think of cigar brands, you think of, like, the heritage brands, or you think of boutique, or you think of the brands in between that have been around for 10 plus years.
Sure.
This year has been a lot of brands celebrating 10th anniversaries and things like that.
Sure.
But for Lure to be still so new and to have the success you're having already, and to be able to put out different lines and things like that, I mean, that's got to be inspirational for other people out there who are also wanting to get into the position you're in. So I give you a lot of props for that, man.
Thank you.
Like, I've talked to a lot of people in my time in the industry who want to take that first step. So I think anyone out there who's interested in these ideas, this is definitely a guy to talk to about it.
Sure.
So I commend you a lot with
Thank you.
what you've put out. Back to this, the Oscuro Little Joe. This thing is chocolatey, espresso. Maybe it could be the espresso I'm having that's enhancing it right now.
Sure.
But you still get that, like, a little bit of like a creamy vanilla in the background of it. No, like you were saying, like you wanted to create something that had more full flavor.
Yes.
You hit it with
Thank
that.
you.
So great cigar.
Well, the talent is not. I can pick a good cigar that I like to smoke.
Sure.
But in terms, I got to give props to the people at the factory, and the real talent of the people that touch the tobacco, grow the tobacco, blend the tobacco. So props to the people at the factory, and realize that this is not some mystery here, and I'm not some master blender. I'm a guy that really likes good cigars, and I've been very fortunate to have some blends presented to me that I can sit there and validate and say, this is something I want to put my brand on. And I think that that kind of approach to it is, I would love to someday be able to go down there and have the hands-on, and be able to do that. But I'm not so sure you'd want a cigar that I would, blend myself. It's something else that you leave the talent.
But at least to
talent
get
is.
the experience of
Oh,
it.
absolutely. So that's kind of hopefully to be in there in 2026 to go down there. I've got a wedding to pay for, but my daughter getting married in May. So I said after that's out of the way, then I can do some international travel and see something like that.
We've gone over Lure, learning a lot about Lou with Lure as well. Is there anything you'd like to add about your relationship with the manufacturing? I feel, me knowing the brand is one thing, but the folks out there who are watching may not.
Well, I've been very fortunate. I came into this with the benefit of having somebody who had 10 years of experience in actually working with different factories and coming up and settling on where we are manufacturing now. So Nimr Ahmad from Valakari, he basically, his 10th year is coming up this next year. So when I had gone to him, he has been a mentor. While he's a lot younger than I am, you wouldn't know it because he's got a lot of experience. And so I owe him a lot. And then there's been other people in the industry that have given me guidance. But getting to the factory that we've been working with has been it's made things a lot easier for me because I was able to go and say, tell me what I need to do. And I've just basically followed directions. And his success has been, my success because the stumps that he's running through and hit in the past, I get to avoid. I've still had my own challenges. But at the same time, I have a great relationship with the factory. We're at La Tabacarian now, and that factory enterprise is the talent in the tobacco that we have. Basically, we've got some really strong ties there and some good management influence over that. And that has been really, really good for us to have those relationships and to build that relationship on his relationship. So I basically have been fortunate enough to have the experience that he has, and that shows up in the actual cigars that are being produced.
Very awesome. Cool.
So all Esteli, Nicaragua, in terms of where it is, and the catalog of tobacco there is just phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. And we want to talk about a brand new release, a limited release, very, very limited release. This is Red Fish.
Red Fish.
Red Fish.
Yeah, so there's, being in this neighborhood, I know there's a lot of people that are coastal fishermen out there going out for the redfish, and it just happens to be that the redfish was named because of the Corojo Oscuro reddish-brown wrapper that's on that.
Really? I thought it was like a Dr. Seuss related.
Well, you did have the bluefish too, so that was something we did for another shop. But the redfish was, I didn't know, but one fish, two fish, redfish, bluefish, right? So it just happened to work out that way. But the redfish is a collaboration cigar. And so my relationship with Valakari Cigars has grown over the last 18 months that we've been in business, and he's been in business for 10 years. And as a tribute to him and a thankful nod to him helping me throughout, we decided to do a collaboration. And so one of my favorite cigars from Valakari is the Lumineer, which is his new one that launched this last April at PCA, and it's Habano, which is a real Alnica Puro. I said, can we take that Lumineer and wrap it with the Corojo Oscuro from the Big Loop? And so he said, let's try it. And so when they sent up the experiment and it came up and we smoked it, we did it in a box press format like the Mean Gene. This cigar just kind of hit our palates and we said, we will do this together. So we did 2,500 cigars, and this was something just kind of as a nod and let people know that we're doing more things together, and we'll be doing other collaborative projects coming up as things go forward.
That's awesome, man. What would you, to describe to the folks at home watching this, what would you say with like a, body, strength, flavor profiles?
So I smoke a lot of strong cigars. So when I sit there and I tell you that this is a pretty medium plus to full-bodied cigar, please be mindful of that. In terms of, I really think that this cigar is on that medium plus profile for the strength. It is full flavored. You're going to get the natural sweetness of the Corojo Oscuro, which is that aged Corojo. You'll get a lot of dried fruit notes that's on that. You'll get some of the leather notes. There is that coffee background that's in there with the Habano underneath. So this has a lot of Amatepe tobacco in it. And so the binder is Amatepe, and then the filler is Jalapa, Esteli, and Amatepe in the filler as well. So you do get some nicotine strength, but you also get just full flavored notes that there's some dried cedar. You'll get kind of on the finish, and then the retro on this is straight, black pepper that you got to, there's some creamy, it's a long finish. So that's what, this is a cigar that it truly is a signature of both brands. You get the Corojo that started our business, and you get the kind of the pinnacle of his Habano line that is coming out with Lumineer. So it's kind of a nod to both.
Absolutely. And I will say from the few that I have smoked so far, you hit it right there with cedar, especially once you get to that halfway point. To me, the cedar really illuminates. I guess you could add to there to pay homage to you guys here.
Yep.
But definitely the cedar, there's some creaminess. There is that kind of like coffee, nutmeg kind of going on. But I would say on the retro, It's almost like a crushed red pepper. And I would assume that's where like that kind of like power with the flavor profile and the strength comes in.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Yep.
Very awesome. Cool. Well, I would say to kind of wrap this up, one last question for you. For the folks watching at home who are now learning about Lure,
Yeah.
and now they want to try Lure, where would you say would be the perfect first Lure cigar for folks to dabble their toes into the water, so to speak?
So if you start and you want to build in terms of the kind of the ramping up from flavor and strength, I would start with Habano. And depending on what your preference is for size, I would start with Habano, then I would move to the Corojo Oscuro. And then after the Corojo Oscuro, I might go Oscuro, which is the orange. And then as a kind of a finish move for the core line, then I would go to the Maduro. Okay. And the Maduro that is coming out. So that progression, you'd start with the Habano, and depending on what you have, there's a Habano, Robusto, and a Toro, the same thing for each of the core lines. There's always a Robusto and Toro. And there's a couple other box press sizes and things that we have from some of the special projects we've done along the way, or limited releases that we've done. But Habano, Corojo, Oscuro, and then the Maduro.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming in here today. It's always a pleasure to see you. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. It's a pleasure for you guys out there watching to learn a little bit about Lure, and hopefully check us out. We've got a pretty decent selection of Lure on smokingpipes.com.
Absolutely.
And if you decide to get some, let us know which one is your favorite.
Yeah, please. Yes. Let us know on social media. Follow us at Lure Cigars.
Yeah.
And follow us on Facebook as well. We love to have the feedback and love to have the comments. If you don't like it, let us know you don't like it and why you don't like it. But at the same time, we love to hear your experience. And our slogan is smoke great cigars and tell tall tales.
Love it. Cool. Thank you.